end of the month, towards the end of the month, of course, there's a big meeting taking place. According to President Trump, they are set to meet with Xi Jinping. Soybeans look set to be very high on that agenda, as American farmers are increasingly worried about the lack or absence of orders here out of the Chinese. Their crops will go unpurchased this year without a single trade. With trade, generally speaking, with Beijing. Let's bring in Stephen Engle, our Chief North Asia correspondent, on what the latest here as far as soybeans are concerned.
Soybeans, yeah, that's moving up to the top of the agenda as far as issues that Donald Trump wants to talk to Xi Jinping about, obviously, because China, essentially, according to the data we have, has not ordered any soybean cargoes from the United States since the harvest began last month. And that is a big shock to American farmers, which conventional wisdom would say many of them in the Midwest probably voted for Donald Trump. And they are getting increasingly angry. They're worried about stockpiles filling up their silos and prices falling. And prices have been falling. They've had the worst two-year stretch of prices in soybeans in a decade. And right now, prices are down and demand has flatlined. And that is really concerning these farmers. And so Donald Trump has said it's going to be a major topic of discussion when he meets Xi in about 4 weeks on the sidelines of APEC. And he has said, basically is asserting that China is doing this for negotiating reasons only, not by not buying. It's a negotiating tactic. And why not? China knows that the United States needs China because, again, the soybean crops, traditionally, anywhere between 30 to 60% of American soybean crops are sent to China, depending on the year, depending on the politics. And it was a focal point of the first trade deal that Trump negotiated with China. It fell apart, of course, because of the pandemic and other issues. But you know, we need to look at some charts. Oh, you already brought it up. There's the flat line, the white line. China's not buying. And it's been 4 weeks of the harvest already since the beginning of September. We're 1/5 the way through the harvest, according to the industry groups. And this is expected to be about 117 million metric ton crop this year. And they could be sitting idle. So that's a big problem. Let's bring up a next chart about the sentiment that farmers have right now. It's sinking because of the potential of overflowing storage bins. And then we can bring up the next chart and show the prices, how they've looked over the last couple of years. It's a ski slope downwards.
Yeah. We talk about, soybeans possibly be a negotiating tactic by China.
Yeah.
We talked about the priorities already leading up to APEC. It seems like it's TikTok, maybe a little bit of Taiwan.
Industrial
maybe
magnets.
Yeah. What does this trade deal potentially look like now between U.S. and China?
If we could still call it a trade deal, actually, or is it a broader
we don't even know if there's
conversation?
a trade deal. Donald Trump's been a pretty open book in his negotiating tactics. How open has China been in its strategy? Other than you follow the money, you follow the data. China clearly is buying from Argentina. They're buying soybeans from Brazil. They're not buying from the United States at all this year, or this harvest. So, again, you have to kind of I would probably agree with Donald Trump that China is using this as a negotiating tool. Why not?
Yeah.
If they have that leverage, why not? And Republican lawmakers already in the last 24 hours or so, after having a closed-door meeting with the U.S. ambassador to China, David Perdue, got the assessment, I assume, from him that China is not going to be buying anytime soon. Why? Because that meeting between Xi and Trump is not going to happen for another 4 weeks. So another month of the harvest is going to go untouched by China. So again, it's becoming a bit dicey time for farmers. That's why Trump, again, mentioned today that we might use some of that revenue that they're getting from tariffs and send that in the form of aid to farmers. But again, farmers, from the farmers Bloomberg News has talked to, they don't want handouts. They want a trade deal with China. That's sustainable. And they know that their crops will be sent. If they get cash handouts, they still have that excess inventory.